Video lesson 5.3, Rise of the Catholic Church. So I know the numbering got a little bit off, but just roll with me here. This is our third lesson of this unit. We were kind of off from the beginning. So our third lesson of the unit has this video lesson with it. So this is video lesson 5.3. Alright, so we're going to focus today on kind of the early Middle Ages and how medieval Europe becomes reorganized after the fall of the Roman Empire. So basically picking up where we left off. Just to kind of more formally introduce this term, the Middle Ages in Europe describes the period between the fall of the Roman Empire and the beginning of the Renaissance. But remember, we've described this kind of time period between a classical civilization and more the modern civilization as the medieval or Middle Age period in many civilizations, not just Europe. So in Europe specifically, the early Middle Ages is from about the fall of the Roman Empire, so about 400 AD to about 1000 AD. And then from about 1000 to 1300 AD is what we call the High Middle Ages. So this is kind of when it's really entrenched, but we start to see some progress in civilization and development. We start to see those kingdoms forming. Culture is coming back, education, knowledge, those kinds of things. And then the late Middle Ages is kind of where we start to transition into the Renaissance, which is what our entire next unit is about. So just to kind of show you where we are geographically, remember all of this, all the way up to halfway above Britain, all the way through over in Constantinople, all of that was the Roman Empire. So now, with the invasion of those Germanic tribes, we have those tribes or those kingdoms being settled by those various groups. So we have the kingdom of the Franks here, we have the Angles and the Saxons, we have the Ostrogoths, the Lombards, various other kingdoms that is kind of hard to see, Visigoths, Burgundians, and then we still have Constantinople hanging out over here. This is the Eastern Roman Empire. This is maintained by that move, that shift from Rome to Constantinople, the shift of the capital, that is. So although the western part of the Roman Empire is lost to these Germanic tribes, the eastern part, remember, is still thriving through the late Middle Ages. So how does medieval Europe, and we're talking mostly Western Europe, that's why your map quiz today was on Western Europe, many Germans had already converted to Christianity before the fall of the Roman Empire. So Christianity had already spread. So remember, by 325 AD, that's this dark purple. I showed you this map on the last video lesson. So we've got, even around Paris, there's some Christian. We've got just little pockets, even up through the northern part of Europe here. However, after the fall of the Roman Empire, Christianity, because it is maintained by the Germans, continues to gain more followers as missionaries continue to convert Saxons, Goths, Vandals, other groups of those Germanic tribes. And these German kings, once they actually maintain a foothold in their territory, or maintain like a steady place in that territory, they reinforce their strong ties to the Catholic Church, and they force conversion of their people oftentimes as well. So think about how that could impact both their power and the power of the Catholic Church. All right, so we introduced our friend Charlemagne a little bit last class, but Charlemagne, which is spelled C-H-A-R-L-E-M-A-G-N-E, is the leader that we're going to talk about when we're talking about the Franks. So the Franks had some military successes here. They had 45 military campaigns or conquests or expeditions here. And these took place in modern-day Italy, northern Spain, eastern Germany, this whole big area. Right now, we see kind of the border of France like right about here, right? So this whole kind of area here is now France. This is Belgium, this is the Netherlands, this is currently Germany, we've got Switzerland up in here. So really Italy starts here. So we can see that those countries are just man-made borders. They do not exist at this time. So all of this blue is where Charlemagne had his empire. Or the Franks, I should say. Oh, I didn't even realize. Here we go. Charlemagne, right there, in case you missed me spelling it. So all of this empire, under blue, is what was under Pepin, who was the leader of the Franks before Charlemagne. And then Charlemagne added all of this area of Germany, pretty much all of this of Italy, not not including Rome, but including these papal territories, which we'll get to in a second. And underneath all of this territory, it was organized by Charlemagne, not really strong, but he did have nobles who were called counts, as in Count Dracula, if you're familiar with Dracula. So a count is actually a noble title. So these counts served as regional authorities, and they did not really serve on family land or have any control over territory of their own, and they were often switched around. So they basically just reported back to Charlemagne. So they were very inefficient, and they were largely held together by loyalty to Charlemagne himself. So naturally, after the person they are loyal to dies, as happens with many cult of personality, we call it, the leadership then fails as well. So that's why in order to continue or create a sustainable civilization, we need to create laws and justice and systems of order. So we're going to kind of bridge the gap with Charlemagne from the political reorganization of medieval Europe to the kind of cultural reorganization of Europe. So Charlemagne's had a growing alliance between, there was a growing alliance between popes and Frankish kings before Charlemagne. So even with Pepin, and Clovis, there was kind of this relationship between the Catholic Church, which was headed by the Pope who lived in Rome, and his empire himself. So they already saw the connection because they were a Christian empire. And he reorganized and managed the church officials himself. And basically what this did was it allowed the territory to be divided up among the church officials, which benefited them. And he brutally forces Christianity upon those he conquers. So even if there weren't Christians in these areas, he forced that Christianity upon them. And one battle in particular represents this very well, and this is called the Battle of Tours, and it was fought on October 10th, 732, near Tours, France, which is why it's called the Battle of Tours. So you can see here, this is the Frankish kingdom, which is modern-day France. The Spanish kingdom at this time is under Arab control. Remember, this is 732, so this is approximately 100 years after Muhammad first has his revelations. So the results of this battle was that it was a decisive victory for the Franks, and it prevented Muslim conquest of Europe beyond Spain. So as Muhammad's empire is spreading through North Europe, and the Arab Caliphate is spreading through Northern Europe and into, Northern Africa, and into the Iberian Peninsula here, which is Spain and Portugal. Basically, both of these come from opposing directions, and they meet at Tours, which ultimately results in the Franks kind of solidifying this border between Christian Europe and Islamic Spain. So in order to solidify that even further and spread the Christian faith, two forces were needed by Charlemagne. So he needed a spiritual force, which already existed as the Western Church, and he also needed the political authority to rule all of this newly claimed territory. So he needed somebody to say he deserves all this territory to rule, and he also needs somebody that he can say, but I recognize this spirituality, this is my destiny, God, it's God's divine will that is making me the ruler of this. So, well, once again, we have Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire over here, and then we have the Kingdom of Franks up here. So Pope Leo III was Pope at the time, so we're going to get to what a Pope is in a second. He wants to be more powerful than the Byzantine Pope, because the Byzantines also have a Pope. So there's a Pope in Rome and a Pope in Constantinople. And obviously, there can't be two leaders of the same church. So next class, you're going to get into a little bit about why there's a Byzantine church and why there's a Roman Catholic church. But for today, we're looking at how there are two popes competing for power. And he wants to spread Christianity and gain more Roman Catholic followers, and he needs an army to do that. Charlemagne also wants to spread Christianity, but he needs the religious authority to do so. So this mutual beneficial relationship between Pope Leo III and Charlemagne emerges. He needs that justification that he can convert all of these followers and that he is truly a divine king. And then Pope Leo III also wants more followers, so he wants to pair up with Charlemagne too, so he has that army and he has those people that he can force to convert. So what happens is when Charlemagne is coronated or crowned king, this happens in Christmas of 1800 CE. Pope Leo III crowns Charlemagne Holy Roman Empire. So this does two things. One, notice Charlemagne's positioning here. So the Pope, popes always wear these funny pointy hats here. The Pope is crowning Charlemagne. So he is literally the embodiment of God, giving Charlemagne his political power. And two, it also symbolizes that Charlemagne is officially uniting himself with the Catholic Church. So there are a couple after effects or consequences of this conversion. There's just another prettier image of Constantine's coronation. So significance is that the title itself of the Holy Roman Emperor symbolizes the union of Greek, Roman, and Germanic traditions, which leads to the foundations of modern Europe. There should not be a question mark there. That's an oversight on my part. And so lines are completely blurred between the church and state with the uniting of these two institutions. So the Pope gets Charlemagne to provide him with legitimacy and force him to an ability to spread Christianity. Charlemagne gets a new title, which makes Charlemagne seem as politically powerful as the Byzantine emperor because he's now the Holy Roman Emperor. So that puts him on the same footing as the guy who is technically the Roman emperor in the eastern half of the Roman Empire. So, for example, the abbesses now recognize Charlemagne as equal to him. So other civilizations are seeing him as politically equal. And that also puts him above other European or Germanic kings. It also centralizes Christian power in Rome, not the Byzantine Empire. So how does the Catholic Church gain political and social power in medieval Europe, kind of branching away from Constantine? So one of the things that this does is it creates an intellectual revival through monasteries. Thousands of early Christian works and Bibles are produced by hand. So this meant that more people are kind of joining these monasteries and getting into this intellectual field, not necessarily that more common people are literate. Charlemagne does build and fund palace schools, so this meant schools for royals. So again, still not completely literate, widespread, like peasants and ordinary people are not literate at this time. And there are also some cultural changes that reflect new church teachings. So there's this emphasis upon monogamy. So that's the changing role of kinship, what sons inherit from their fathers. So it's this family unit becomes increasingly important, and divorce is difficult in order to limit sexual promiscuity. And it is also around this time where homosexuality becomes increasingly frowned upon, but not as harshly as married couples using contraception or birth control. Contraception means birth control. So in Greek and Roman culture, homosexuality was not frowned upon. It was kind of an accepted part of classical society. However, it is during this time period where they really want the family unit, they want people to be producing more children, they want society to be a little more stable, where we see these things kind of coming about as a result of the Catholic Church. Also, in terms of their health, just in this period of time, this is kind of a side note, fun fact, bathing is still pretty infrequent among most people in Europe. And if sick, which was often, they practiced bloodletting. So they would allow the patient to bleed bad blood out, or if serious, they applied leeches to the sick to suck out the bad blood. So you can see, like, this is a bloodletting bowl where the bad blood would be spilled. And it was believed that by just releasing this bad blood, you would have more good blood and therefore get better. And monasteries actually served as one of the sources of medicinal knowledge and some herbs and apothecaries and that sort of thing. But it was very, very rudimentary, which means basic. So, As I kind of foreshadowed earlier in this video lesson, the Carolingian kingdom, or Charlemagne's kingdom, disintegrates after his death. So after he died, people, like I said, were more loyal to him than to the empire, and so it kind of disintegrates. There are also increasing invasions from groups known as the Vikings, who came from Finland, Sweden, and Norway, and Denmark. And these people collectively, this region is known as Scandinavia, and these people went pretty much throughout Europe, throughout Russia, and they were very famous, obviously, for their seafaring techniques and their navy. And so they are actually the first ones to reach North America. Just again, fun fact. But they were also brutal warriors who raped and pillaged and stole and burned everything that they came across. And because Charlemagne dies, it's this total loss of central authority. So all of this area, which was under Charlemagne's control, is now this power vacuum. So that means somebody has to kind of come in and fill that void, or some institution, some group must come in and be that power structure that the society needs in order to operate effectively. So that's going to be where we pick up next class. Make sure you take the quiz.